So overall, when I joined product management, this was I roughly have close to 10 years of experience now. So back then, when I was sort of starting my professional journey, a role of a product management or a product manager was not that evidently known. So basically, we built this strategy for the next coming 3 to 5 years, that what all business unlocks we can do in building a certain product. Basically, raise the bar for our customers and support them, assist them in throughout their journey. Data has always been more critical. Our revenue basically went almost to zero. Economic factor is one thing that uh, is actually causing bit of a disruption in the in the travel sector, travel space. They're now focusing on hyper personalization. The interesting trends that is coming up is basically around super apps, where as day in and day out, you start seeing that you will have an app for everything. Product manager uh, is more of like a dictator, I would say. The work that goes underlying is actually quite collaborative process. Product management is more of a mindset rather than like rather than just a role. Do they have that eye to solve a certain problem? A fresher, and you're trying to get into the role, try to gather a lot of examples, a lot of instances where you have sort of solved a problem. So overall, when I joined product management, this was I roughly have close to 10 years of experience now. So back then, when I was sort of starting my professional journey, a role of a product management or a product manager was not that evidently known. So similar in my case, in fact, one in my entire batch knew like a role like this existed. Luckily, in my last 2 years of my graduation, me along with a couple of batchmates of mine, we did our own startup. It was an e-commerce store that we had, and we were quite profitable. Within the first 6 7 months of operations, so we had a pretty good run with that startup. We ran it for almost 2 years, and yeah. So due to some unforeseen circumstances where we decided that we will not be able to scale it to the expectations, we decided that it would be good to sort of move to the next set of challenge. So when I started interviewing, I realized that in a majority of the interviews, I got this feedback that your experience kind of aligns with what our product manager's role is. So that's how I got introduced to this specific role. And then obviously back then, I would say more than 95% of the product managers, which the there was sort of a hard sort of requirement for them to have an MBA degree. So that was one of the reason that I got an sort of entry into this role, but I wasn't given resignation of a product manager. So it was more of a product analyst, where my role was that I was aligned with the product manager, and I would help them in their entire product development journey altogether. So that's where I would say that I was able to learn a lot and get hands-on experience by working closely with a product manager to understand that what thought process goes into right from identifying a user problem, then sort of zeroing down, doing enough user research to ensure that you're solving the right problem for the right folks, and then building product, analyzing it. So majorly I was supporting product managers to ensure that while they are building a strong business case, how I can leverage the data to support them so that they are making the right decisions. And to an extent, when they launch a product, my responsibility was to analyze and ensure that the product is heading into the right direction, it is meeting all the right KPIs. So yeah, so then I worked as a product analyst with Zoomcar, which was back then the first startup within India, which was offering where you can sort of get self-drive cars. You can basically rent a car and you can drive it on your own. And it was the first of a kind startup here in India, which was offering something like this in an organized space. Then I moved to Zomato. Luckily, after just after 6 months, working at Zomato, I basically started getting opportunities in building smaller products, but end-to-end product, which was something that like I felt I was preparing myself up until now. So yeah, so I worked on a lot of products where where I had responsibilities of building it end to end and launching it. So yeah, so that's how I got more of a hands-on experience, and then I got this great opportunity at Expedia, where obviously like it was a much more bigger organizations. There were a lot different challenges. So apart from just product development, I was looking into different aspects. So yeah, so that's my overall journey up until now, like a glimpse of it, like how I got into product management. And so since I am working as a lead product manager at Expedia, which means that like within the org, like I'm currently responsible for uh, I have the ownership of a certain domain within the hotels business. So hotels business contribute roughly 70% of Expedia's revenue. So within that, the domain which I am currently leading. So if I talk about uh, right from prioritization, that for the ongoing products, the products which are already live or which are in development, that is one of the areas where where I actively contribute to ensure that like we are the product development is going on in the right direction. And whenever we come across any uncertain requirements or unexpected requirements, my responsibility is to ensure that like we are prioritizing the right problems and not deviating the team's roadmap. Then the other aspect is basically for forward looking, where I work with the product leaders and like other leaders in different teams to ensure that like we always have forward looking items on our roadmap, where we are constantly creating a very strong and groomed backlog, so that like the team has um, work to deliver one after the other. Then the third part is like looking at the overall strategy. So strategy here is since like Expedia is a global company and like it is well established, so like the strategic role plays a very significant part altogether. So I have to look into that what all directions should I take my product, so that like in the upcoming years, so basically we build this strategy for the next coming 3 to 5 years, that what all business unlocks we can do in building a certain product. So yeah, so these are the three major areas. That's where I hold the responsibilities right now. With the latest developments that like all of us have seen in the AI space, especially the great work we have seen that like in generative AI, and like I would say that's where even Expedia is like now actively working towards that, like, and they're exploring options that in almost every business domain, how they can leverage AI to basically bring in more efficiency and generate more revenue, bring more value to our customers. So yeah, so when it comes to like application from that perspective, our goal is to ensure that the products that we are building for our customers, how much personalization we can add it to them, to what extent we can basically raise the bar for our customers and like support them, assist them in throughout their journey. Because like if you see, planning a travel can be exciting, but it can also be very cumbersome for everyone. So now I would say that like even the customer's expectation is that how we can, apart from just providing them a platform to book travel, they expect that like there should be a proper and enhanced assistance throughout their journey while they are even planning, or while they have just begin planning, and till the end once their journey is ended. So they expect more assistance And then the other interesting thing is that like the customers have also uh, s- started expecting a lot more quicker support. I would say that like with AI coming into scene, that's one of the upsides and like I wouldn't exactly call it a downside, but yeah. So it has basically raised the bar for the companies as well as the customers as well. So that's where like I think that like these changing trends really impact like sort of how we can bring in more efficiency and service our customers more faster. So yeah. uh, every product obviously has like their own specific success metrics, but by and large if you see that like we see that like every product that we are shipping out will have impact on the end traveler. So that is, so if I have to say that like so every product will have a north star metric, which in a way would be improving the traveler's booking experience. So I would say yeah, so we start with that metric and then obviously we follow up with the different business and product metrics that helps us track the success of that product. uh, right when I started my career, and comparing it to the present time, I would say data has always been more critical, like one of the most critical factors in product development. And given the current times, to see that like there is actually abundance of data, which means that like the data can actually help you in taking the right decisions and solving the right problems. If I have to just simplify it, uh, it reduces uh, like it overall reduces the chances of you making mistakes. So that's how I have been using data altogether. That like let's say if I have a hypothesis that like this product will solve a certain problem for my end customers, I can always use data to at least validate or get some early signals that if this hypothesis is correct or not, that can at least increase the chance of success of my product. So yeah, overall, like it's very critical in the entire product development process. Yeah. So product feedback is something that like since you are building it for the end user, the product you're building for the end user, it is always very critical to constantly getting early feedback from your customer to ensure that like you are building the right problem and so solving the right problem, building the right product and solving the right problems for them. So I would say that like a typical product development journey starts with where you first build a prototype, which is a basic functioning product. Then you build a proof of concept. You see that like if it is functioning or not, and then you start piloting that thing. So in a product pilot, you basically launch it to very handful of your customers and see and try to gauge some early feedback. It is not a complete like it is not a completely finished product, but like it does provide some value to your customers. So that's where we start gauging that like if it is sort of helping the end customer or not. And then we have multiple cycles of these product piloting. And once we start getting positive feedback from this sort of customer feedback process, so then we start increasing the scope of this. So then we start delivering it to a bigger set of population, again getting, so like it's a very iterative process. And we gradually sort of increase the target market, so that like in this journey we are constantly getting feedback, we are improving, and yeah, building the right products for our customers. So travel sector was like one of the sectors which was significantly hit with COVID. Like on, yeah, like I remember that like our revenue basically went almost to zero at that time. and it was one of the sectors that sort of came back comparatively slowly compared to the other sectors also. Although we are seeing new enthusiasm from travelers, we have seen a new set of travelers coming up post COVID, but which was actually a very good uptrend for the travel industry altogether. But I would say one of the main concerning things that we have seen, like we are actually seeing this year and last year as well, like with all the sort of economic instability that is happening globally, like with recession and let's say increase in the fuel prices altogether, which again increases the travel cost. So economic factor is one thing that uh, is actually causing bit of a disruption in the industry, in the travel sector. Then uh, yeah, majorly I would say this thing, and I'm trying to think if there are any other leading reasons because of it. Yeah, so this is the only thing that is coming, like which is like sort of creating of an impact right now. So with the evolution of AI, I see that uh, even customers expect, and all the players in the online travel space, they're now focusing on hyper personalization. That means that instead of just building products um, at like for a larger user segment, you ensure that to what level of granular personalization you are able to build. It means that you can expect a far more better engagement from your end customers. So that is one of the thing. Then one of the interesting trends that is coming into the travel domain is like augmented reality, where sort of which ensures that the customers are getting a more like more immersive experience. For example, let's say whenever you have to book a hotel, let's say, so all you can do is basically scroll through the images, and you always have this uh, unanswered questions that is the room size good enough, is the amenities good enough. But certain trends are coming where you can sort of get a 3D view of this thing, and with augmented reality coming into being, you can basically using your mobile phones, you can basically get sort of a 3D image of that room, and you can basically scroll around and see and get a better view of the experience that you are planning to book. Then there are interesting things happening around security part as well. Like especially I see this trend coming up outside India, where people are a lot more uh, concerned about the data privacy. So I see that in the upcoming years, the involvement of blockchain would be very critical, like especially when it comes to their personal information, like their profile information, their payment information, and all those things. So yeah, these are the few trends I think I foresee would be quite critical. Uh, So every product will, as I mentioned earlier, will always have a North Star metric, which means that the end goal of that product, which obviously majorly it would be either increasing the revenue, it would be some specific metric, or increasing the revenue, increasing engagement, or let's say uh, increasing the repeat rate of your customers. So yeah, so first we start with the North Star metric, then we'll have more granular business metrics. So business metrics would be that what specific um, goals that you expect from for that particular product to solve for. And then we have product success metrics, which means that which involves around the functionality of the product itself. To give an example, let's say if you are you introduced a filter on Expedia that you can now filter hotels by if a hotel is pet friendly or not. So the end goal, the North Star metric for this would obviously be, you would expect the bookings, the overall bookings to increase. That would be a North Star metric. But when it comes to business metrics, it could be that like you can like expect people to sort of you can expect that like once people start using this feature, they would find uh, your platform to be more user friendly, and they would be able to generate more value from like sort of booking from your platform, which would impact their repeat rate. So you can expect them to come back. So which could be one of your business metric. While a product metric could be the functioning of that product itself. That like for example, if somebody is trying to click on that particular filter, if the hotel is pet friendly or not, if that filter is working correctly or not. So it can be like, is it correctly filtering all the hotels or not? Is it throwing some errors or throwing some errors? So yeah, so that's how we provide it, like not star metric, business metrics, and product metric. Yeah. So, like, especially when you're building product for a global company, so it means that like you're building it for all geographical locations. So, one of the key things that we look out for is that we have a user research team which are focused into every geographical locations. So that is one of the key ways, like we basically get an early indications or early signals that like what are the upcoming trends or expectations for each geographical locations. So that helps us ensure that whenever we are building product, it would be like it would have a far better global acceptance. To give an example, that a few years back, I was building this feature of login with WhatsApp. So basically, you can log in into your Expedia app using WhatsApp. So one of the approach would obviously be that like you build this feature and you launch it globally. But if you keep localization in mind, you would realize that, like, let's say for a country like China, they do not use WhatsApp, but like they have one other, like I guess it's WeChat. So instead of building it for WhatsApp, we introduced login with WeChat. While there were some other countries which had like some other ways of popular, like any other popular messaging apps. So that's how sort of having a more localized approach would increase the adoption of your product and reduce the chances of it getting failed. One of the interesting trends that is coming up is basically around super apps, where like as day in and day out, like you start seeing that like you know you'll have an app for everything. So it starts getting very cluttered and very cumbersome for uh, the end user also to keep track of everything. So that's where you start seeing that like there would be one single app that basically helps you solve a lot of problems. Like it could be like something like, let's say what Paytm is doing here in India. Like you can basically book a travel, you can make payments from it, you can shop from it. So all those things. So that is one of the I would say like interesting trends that is coming up in the platform space. Interesting technologies. Hmm. So, yes, obviously, like with the recent sort of surge of generative AI, where we have products like ChatGPT and Gemini, so it has actually reduced the load on product managers to do at least the initial set of discovery, and plus the time that we used to spend like sort of in doing some kind of sort of industry research, market research, or using the best practices while we were building a product. Now that is just one sort of chat away to any of these chat assistants. So I would say that like the expectation, like especially in the product management, is now that uh, now with a lot of these boilerplate work that is now automated with these an AI chatbots. The expectation is that how we can sort of work on more hyper personalization, keep in mind that the product success is pretty high altogether. So that is one of the things. And then obviously when it comes to product, like in the product development process, now we have like a lot more interesting tools altogether. Let's say tools which are no code to tools, where especially you can um, uh, like build prototypes of your product with very minimal efforts, and it can give you a more realistic understanding of how the product development process is going altogether. Early on, you used to use like these, either a notebook or a sort of a notepad, or something wireframing tools, which used to give an understanding, but like that again, that experience was not that quite immersive altogether. So I feel that like these kinds of tool really takes the product development process to the next level, and it would be quite easier for the stakeholders to also understand that how these upcoming products would exactly shape up. Misconceptions like I've seen is that people feel that a product manager has product manager uh, is more of like a dictator, I would say. That whatever the product manager says, uh like that we that is the only thing that everyone has to agree to. But the reality is that whenever a product manager comes up with, let's say, a final product requirement document, the work that goes underlying is actually quite collaborative process. So let's say, even right from the point when we start doing user research, you see that we talk to different stakeholders who are directly in contact with the end users. For example, we have the operations team, we have the service team, the customer service team, to get a better feedback of to get a better pulse of our customers. Then once we start sort of building a business case, we collaborated a lot with the analytics team to get their viewpoints on that. Once we start building a prototype, we collaborate a lot with the UI UX team to again ensure that the product is basically the product experience is to the expected level. And then the final thing is that we have to collaborate a lot internally with other stakeholders right from your engineering team to your program teams, to ensure that the product that you are building, if it has a dependency on their roadmaps, how both of us can work together in launching that product. And then finally, the outcome that you see of a PRD is not sort of entirely just built by a product manager. Underlying it has a lot of collaboration and suggestions from different stakeholders, and they have to sort of then summarize everything and put it up and frame it as the final requirements. I would say that I feel product management is more of a mindset rather than like rather than just a role. So that's why, especially whenever I interview folks who are just starting their careers, or even who had been in a completely different role and now planning to switch and move to product management, I try to understand that in their day-to-day life, or in whatever professional non-professional experience they have had up until now, do they have that eye to solve a certain problem, and do they get do they have that level of excitement and that level of interest to basically drill down and really understand the problem. For example, one of the interesting thing was that I was sort of mentoring a person that who had like 5 to 6 years of experience as an HR, and now she wanted to like shift into product management. So instead of asking her a product case study questions, I try to understand that like what all problems she faced as an HR in the company, and if you would have, and what were the ways that you solved those problems. So my idea was not that like if she has built a product or not, but like what was the thought process she had to solve that problem. Like, was it structured approach or not? Did she really spend some time to identify the problems and then start working on it? So that's one of the things. So I would say that especially when you are if you're a fresher and you're trying to get into the role, try to gather a lot of examples, a lot of instances where you have sort of solved a problem in a way, where you have had a proper structured approach in solving a problem. So that really helps the interviewer gain confidence in your skill, that like your inherent skill, and makes them feel that like you are a perfect fit for this role.